In 1911, Procter and Gamble launched Crisco and told American women their grandmothers had been cooking with poison. It said lard was unclean. It said lard was old-fashioned. It said lard belonged in the same trash heap as the horse and buggy. Your grandmother kept rendering it anyway, ladling hot fat through cheesecloth into a mason jar she set on the back of the stove, just like her mother did before her. And here's the part nobody talks about. In 2018, the FDA banned the artificial trans fats that replaced lard for 60 years. The American Heart Association spent half a century telling you that hydrogenated vegetable oil was heart healthy. It was not. It was killing people. Your grandmother never touched it. Number 7 on this list kept your grandfather's work boots waterproof for 3 winters on a single application. And every modern boot conditioner you can buy contains a synthetic imitation of what he smeared on for free. Number 14 combined 2 ingredients your great-grandmother kept in a shed behind the house to make a product that Whole Foods now sells for $14 a bar. Number 3 was the single most important day of the year on a 1940s homestead, a full family ritual. The USDA quietly stopped promoting the year Crisco became a household name. These 25 uses were not abandoned because they stopped working. They were abandoned because somebody got rich when you forgot them. If you knew what your great-grandmother knew about 1 pot of rendered pig fat, you would stop buying half of the bottles, tubes, bars, and cans in your grocery cart. Before we start, hit subscribe. What you are about to learn is not a wellness fad, and it is not seed oil paranoia. It is American kitchen history. Let us count them down. Number 25. Rendering leaf lard on the wood stove. Before the hydrogenation plant, before the plastic tub of shortening, your great-grandmother butchered a hog in November and cut the thick white kidney fat into half-inch cubes over 2 full days. She set the cubes in a heavy cast-iron pot on the back of the wood stove and let them melt at 250 degrees for 6 hours without stirring. A single 250-pound hog yielded 30 to 40 pounds of finished lard. That was a full year of cooking fat for a family of 8. She knew this the way she knew the weight of a good egg. The trick was low heat and patience. Never let it smoke. Never rush it. Strain through cheesecloth twice. Once for the finest grade, once for the second pressing. The clear liquid became baking lard. The cloudy second run became frying lard. The crispy browned bits left in the pot became cracklins. Every farm wife in the Midwest knew this. Today, the USDA requires a federally inspected facility and $1,000 in licensing before you can sell rendered lard across state lines. Your great-grandmother gave jars of it to her neighbors every Christmas. She never asked permission to share fat. Number 24. Flaky pie crust. Before Crisco, before margarine, your grandmother cut cold leaf lard into flour with 2 butter knives until the mixture looked like coarse cornmeal. She added ice water 1 tablespoon at a time and rolled the dough between 2 sheets of wax paper. Leaf lard contains less water than butter, which produces steam pockets during baking. Those steam pockets are why a 1940s pie crust shattered when you cut it, and why the same crust made with vegetable shortening tastes like cardboard. The trick was keeping everything cold. Cold fat, cold water, cold hands. Every farm wife knew this. In 1956, Procter and Gamble began running full-page advertisements in Good Housekeeping claiming Crisco made pies lighter and more digestible than the old way. No study supported that claim. The FTC never challenged it. Your great-grandmother kept using lard, and the women in her family lived into their 90s. Number 23. Lard biscuits. 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1/3 cup of lard cut in cold, 3/4 cup of buttermilk added last. That was the whole recipe. Your grandmother made them in 8 minutes flat every Sunday of her life. She pressed them out with the rim of a drinking glass because she did not own a biscuit cutter. She baked them at 425 degrees for 12 minutes in a cast iron skillet, greased with more lard. The trick was handling the dough as little as possible. Overworked gluten made tough biscuits. Her daughters learned that by the time they were 9. Every Southern kitchen knew this. Number 22. Fried chicken in deep lard. Before the fast food chain, before the freezer aisle, your great-grandmother jointed a whole chicken, dredged the pieces in flour seasoned with salt and black pepper, and lowered them into a cast-iron Dutch oven, half filled with bubbling lard at 350 degrees. The lard smoke point is 370 degrees, which is higher than olive oil and close to peanut oil. It crisps without burning. It drains clean off the chicken instead of soaking in. She strained the used lard through cheesecloth and put it back in the crock for next Sunday. One batch of rendering fried chicken for 6 weekends. In 1990, every fast food chain in America quietly switched away from beef tallow and lard to hydrogenated vegetable oil. The chain said it was for cholesterol. The real reason was shelf life and cost. Your great-grandmother's fried chicken was better because it was cooked in an animal fat the human body had recognized for 10,000 years. Number 21. Cornbread in a hot cast-iron skillet. Your grandfather ate cornbread 3 times a week. Your grandmother heated a tablespoon of lard in a 10-inch cast-iron skillet until it shimmered. She poured the batter directly into the hot fat. The edges crisped into a golden crust the width of a dime. The trick was the preheated skillet. Cold pan equals pale cornbread. Screaming hot pan equals the crust that held the depression together. Every Appalachian kitchen knew this. Number 20. Seasoning cast iron skillets. Before the $90 pre-seasoned pan, your grandmother seasoned her skillet once in 1952, and it outlived her. She rubbed a thin coat of lard across the inside, flipped it upside down in a 400-degree oven, and left it for an hour. Lard polymerizes at high heat into a molecular bond with the iron. That bond is what makes cast iron non-stick. Modern flaxseed oil seasoning chips off within months. A 70-year-old lard-seasoned skillet is slicker than any Teflon pan you can buy. The trick was reapplying a thin coat after every wash. Every farm wife knew this. Number 19. Milk gravy and red-eye gravy. She fried a slice of country ham in lard until the edges curled. She lifted out the ham and threw 2 tablespoons of flour into the hot fat. She whisked in a cup of milk and a pinch of salt. 3 minutes. Done. Red-eye gravy skipped the flour and used black coffee instead of milk. Your grandfather poured it over grits. The trick was the brown bits in the bottom of the pan. That was the flavor. Scrape. Do not scrub. Every Southern housewife knew this. Number 18. Lard donuts. In 1938, the average American ate 15 pounds of donuts a year. All of them were fried in Lard. Your grandmother kneaded a yeast dough, rolled it half-inch thick, cut rings with an inverted coffee can and a shot glass for the hole, and fried them for 90 seconds aside in 365-degree lard. She rolled them in powdered sugar while they were still hot. The trick was the oil temperature. Cold lard soaked into the dough. Correct lard formed a seal in the first 3 seconds that kept the interior dry. Modern factory donuts are fried in palm oil and soybean oil that has been heated for 16 hours straight. Your grandmother's lard was fresh every Saturday. Number 17. Sausage preserved in lard. Before the refrigerator, before the freezer, your great-grandmother ground sausage in November and fried the patties in a cast-iron pan until they were cooked through. She packed the patties tightly into a stoneware crock. She poured hot, rendered lard over the top until every patty was submerged by half an inch. The lard sealed the meat from oxygen. Pathogens cannot grow without oxygen. The crock went into the root cellar at 38 degrees and the sausage stayed edible until May. The trick was total submersion. One patty sticking out above the lard ruined the whole crock. Every German and Appalachian household knew this technique as confit or potted meat. Today, the USDA considers storing home-cooked meat at cellar temperature for 5 months a food safety violation. Your great-grandmother did it every November for 60 years and never poisoned a single person. Number 16. Rillettes and potted meat. She simmered pork shoulder in lard for 4 hours at 225 degrees until it fell apart at the touch of a fork. She shredded the meat with 2 forks, packed it into small jars, and poured the cooking lard over the top to seal it. Spread on bread, it was lunch. Warmed in a pan, it was supper. A single pork shoulder made 10 jars. Each jar lasted 2 weeks in a cool pantry. The trick was the ratio: 1 part lard to 3 parts meat. Less, and it spoiled. More, and it tasted greasy. Every French-Canadian household in Maine and Vermont knew this. Number 15. Pemmican. Before the granola bar, before the protein bar, before the calorie-dense hiking food, frontier trappers and plains tribes ground dried venison or bison into powder, mixed it with rendered lard or tallow in equal weight, and pressed in dried wild berries for vitamin C. A pound of pemmican delivered 3,000 calories. A properly sealed batch kept edible for 10 years at room temperature. Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery survived on it. The Hudson's Bay Company shipped it in leather bags across the continent. The trick was removing every trace of moisture from the meat before mixing. Any water in the pemmican would mold. Correctly made, it was close to indestructible. Your grandfather's generation knew this technology. Today, the military spends $42 per meal, ready to eat for a product that contains more preservatives than calories. Pemmican required 3 ingredients and no laboratory. Number 14. Homemade lye soap. Your great-grandmother combined 6 cups of rendered lard with 12 ounces of lye dissolved in cold rainwater. She stirred the mixture in a wooden barrel for 40 minutes until it thickened to pudding. She poured it into a wooden mold lined with muslin and let it cure for 4 weeks. The result was a pure white bar that cleaned anything and cost pennies to produce. A Lard soap is mild because pig fat is molecularly similar to human skin oils. It does not strip. It cleans. Every rural household in America made soap this way until about 1955. The trick was the lye ratio. Too much burned your hands. Too little and the soap stayed soft. She memorized the ratio from her own mother at age 12. Today, a handmade lard soap bar sells for $14 at specialty grocery stores. The company that sells it calls it Heritage Skincare. Your great-grandmother called it Tuesday. Number 13. Slush lamps. Before rural electrification in the 1930s, your great-great-grandmother filled a tin saucer with soft lard, laid a twisted rag wick across it, and lit the wick. It burned for 4 hours on 2 tablespoons of fat. A slush lamp produced about as much light as a modern 10-watt bulb. The fat barely smoked when rendered correctly. Pioneer cabins were lit by these all winter. The trick was twisting the wick tight enough to draw fat but loose enough to burn. Your grandfather's generation knew this. Number 12. Skin balm and cracked hand cure. Your grandmother kept a small tin of pure lard by the kitchen sink. Every time she washed dishes in winter, she rubbed a dab into her knuckles before she dried them. Lard melts at 95 degrees, which is your skin temperature. It absorbs. It does not sit on the surface. The fatty acid profile matches human sebum almost exactly. The trick was keeping the tin covered so the lard did not pick up kitchen smells. Every farm wife knew this. Today, CeraVe and Aquaphor sell petroleum-based skin balms for $16 an ounce. Both are byproducts of crude oil refinement. Your grandmother's version was a byproduct of Sunday dinner. Number 11, leather conditioner. Your grandfather worked a pair of boots for 10 years and rubbed lard into the leather every month. The fat penetrated the fibers, kept them supple, and sealed out water. Modern leather conditioners contain silicones and petroleum distillates that clog the leather's pores. Lard is how leather was treated for 2,000 years before the chemistry lab. The trick was warming the lard slightly before application so it soaked in rather than sitting on top. Every cobbler knew this. Number 10, hinge lubricant. He rubbed lard on the barn door hinges every fall before the freeze. The door did not squeak and the iron did not rust. Rust cannot form on a greased surface. The trick was applying a thin layer, not packing it in. Your grandfather knew this. Today, WD-40 sells for $8 a can and contains 13 petroleum-derived chemicals. Your grandfather had one jar of lard, and it fixed every hinge on the property. Number 9, lard pound cake. Half the butter in the traditional 1920s pound cake recipe was lard. The cake rose higher, held moisture longer, and sliced cleaner than any all-butter cake. She creamed 4 ounces of lard and 4 ounces of butter with 2 cups of sugar until the mixture doubled in volume. 4 eggs, 1 at a time. 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of milk. 90 minutes at 325 degrees. The cake stayed fresh for a full week under a glass dome. Every southern kitchen knew this recipe. Number 8, sealing canned jars. In 1935, pressure canners were expensive and not every homestead owned one. Your great-grandmother canned sausage, chicken, and bacon in mason jars and sealed the top with a half-inch layer of hot lard before she screwed on the lid. The lard hardened into an airtight seal. The jars lasted a year in the cellar. The USDA now considers this unsafe. It was unsafe sometimes. It killed no one in her family because she knew the rules her own mother taught her. The trick was boiling the jars fully submerged after sealing, belt and suspenders. Every farm woman knew this. Number 7, waterproofing boots. Your grandfather sat by the wood stove on the first cold night of October with his work boots in his lap and a tin of warm lard. He worked the fat into the seams with his thumbs. He rubbed more into the uppers. He set the boots by the stove overnight. The next morning, his boots were waterproof for 3 winters. A 1/4 inch of rendered lard absorbed into the leather seals every pore. Water beads off. Salt cannot penetrate. Snow falls away. Modern no seal and mink oil are re-engineered imitations of what your grandfather bought for 15 cents a pound. The trick was warming the lard first and working it in while the leather was warm. Every farmer knew this. Number 6, cracklins. When your great-grandmother rendered lard, the meaty bits of the fat browned and crisped into small pieces she strained off with a slotted spoon. Those were cracklins. Salted while warm, they were a winter snack. Folded into cornbread batter, they made cracklin cornbread, a Depression classic that fed millions. A batch of rendering yielded about 2 pounds of cracklins from 30 pounds of lard. The trick was pulling them out at exactly the right moment. Too early, and they were soggy. Too late, and they burned. Every hog butchering family knew this. Number 5, greasing bread pans. Before parchment paper, before nonstick spray, before silicone mats, your grandmother rubbed the inside of a bread pan with a pinch of lard, using a folded corner of waxed paper. The loaf released cleanly every time. The trick was a thin, even coat, not a puddle in the corners. Every kitchen in America knew this until about 1960. Today, a can of Pam sells for $6 and contains propellants that the EPA classifies as hazardous air pollutants. Your grandmother used 1 teaspoon of lard. Number 4. Preserving butter. In the summer months before refrigeration, butter went rancid in 3 days. Your great-grandmother packed fresh butter into a stoneware crock, pressed it flat, and poured 1 inch of melted lard over the top to seal out air. The butter stayed fresh for 8 weeks in the root cellar. The trick was forming a complete seal with no air pockets. She ran a knife blade around the edges of the crock to make sure. Every German and Scandinavian homestead knew this. Number 3. The November rendering ritual. On the first Saturday after the first hard frost of November, your great-grandfather butchered the hog at dawn. By mid-morning, every woman in the family was in the kitchen cutting back fat and kidney leaf into cubes. By afternoon, 3 cast iron pots simmered on the stove. By evening, 40 pounds of finished lard sat cooling in stoneware crocks lined up on the pantry floor. The whole family participated. The children fed the stove. The grandmother tasted and salted. The men hauled the crocks. Nothing was wasted. The bones became broth. The skin became crackling. The blood became sausage. The bristles became brushes. 1 day, 1 hog. 12 months of cooking fat, soap, skin balm, boot oil, and lamp fuel for a family of 10. USDA promoted home rendering aggressively in its 1918 wartime bulletins and again during the 1940s Victory Garden campaigns. Then, the post-war food industry needed customers for industrial shortening. USD quietly stopped mentioning rendering in its publications. A generation later, no one remembered how to do it. The trick was making it a family event, not a chore. Your great-grandmother knew this. Number 2. Pastured leaf lard. Not all lard is equal. The fat from a pig raised on pasture, acorns, and kitchen scraps contains 4 times the vitamin D of factory pork fat. It contains significant omega-3 fatty acids. Its monounsaturated fat content rivals olive oil. Leaf lard, the kidney fat specifically, is the purest white and the mildest flavored. It was saved for baking and skin use. The trick was knowing your pig or knowing your butcher. Commodity pork fat from a confinement operation is not the same product. Every farm family raised their own hog or bought one from a neighbor whose hogs they could see. Today, a 1-pound jar of pastured leaf lard costs $22 at a specialty market. Your great-grandmother paid nothing for hers because she fed the pig the peels from her own kitchen. Number 1. The whole system. The most important thing your grandmother knew about lard was not a recipe. It was an understanding. 1 hog produced 30 pounds of fat. Those 30 pounds fried the family's meals, greased their pans, baked their pies, cured their cracked hands, sealed their canned meat, waterproofed their boots, lit their lamps, cleaned their bodies, conditioned their leather, and preserved their butter. Nothing went to waste. 1 ingredient served 25 functions. A single animal produced what a modern household now buys in 25 separate plastic containers from 25 separate brands at 25 separate price points. That was not primitive. That was engineering. Your great-grandmother did not ask what she could buy. She asked what one resource could do. In 1911, Procter and Gamble told American women their grandmothers were wrong. In 1956, the American Heart Association told American women the fat their mothers cooked with was killing them. In 1990, every fast food chain in America switched to industrial seed oils and claimed it was for your health. In 2018, The FDA banned the trans fats that replaced lard and admitted 60 years of nutritional guidance had been wrong. Your grandmother stood at her stove the whole time, rendering her own fat from her own pig, and her kids never had heart attacks. None of this is prepper paranoia. It is how American kitchens worked for 300 years before the last 60. We forgot it in a single generation because forgetting was profitable for someone else. Here is your challenge. Pick one, just one. Buy a pound of pastured leaf lard this week. Make one pie crust with it and taste the difference. Season your cast iron skillet with a thin coat. Rub a dab into your cracked winter hands tonight. Tell me in the comments which one you are trying first. Tell me if your grandmother kept a jar on her stove, because I promise you she did. And somebody in your family tree knew every last use on this list. These were not the tricks of people who had given up. They were the tricks of people who refused to. Your great-grandmother knew. Now, you know too.